And that brings me to our second presenter, who is right here with me, Mark Price. As I mentioned earlier, Mark and Ray go back, and Mark has come up. He lives in near Rosarito Beach now in Mexico. He came up with his daughter Haley and with Josefina.
Josefina, yeah, thank you. Hello. Can I be in the picture, please? No, I have the microphone. No, I'm kidding with you. I'm joking. Okay. Get a good one now. I see. Only one. Perfecto. All right, good. Now, no más, por favor. No más. Hello, everyone. I have a 37-point introduction to Father Ray. A lot of people know that he walks, and he goes for a lot of walks. And he was walking the other day when he called and he told me. And as he was walking with his dog, he heard a voice, and it said, "Pick me up, pick me up." And he's looking around, and he doesn't see anybody, and he looks down, and there's a frog. And the frog is shouting, "Pick me up, pick me up." And so Ray lifts down and picks up the frog, and the frog says to him, "If you kiss me, I turn into a beautiful woman." And Ray looked at the frog and thought about it, put the frog in his pocket, and the frog said, "Wait a minute, I turn into a beautiful woman." He said, "At my age, I'm better off with a talking frog." So, that's my buddy Ray. By the way, I am, but if I offend anybody by saying Ray, well, forget about it. I'm going to do it because I've been calling him Ray for 45 years. It does not mean that I do not respect the title. I do. I admire him as a priest. I respect him as a priest. I admire him as a Monsignor. And I also know that if it wasn't for his association with me, he probably certainly would have been Monsignor by now, a bishop, or perhaps a cardinal. And if they had accepted the $200 I gave him in Rome, he'd have been the Holy Father, Ray. But because I feel responsible for holding back his career, I feel it's okay to refer to him as Ray. Is that okay? All right. I mean no disrespect, and he knows it. I go back 45 years with him, and I've been invited to many of his, it's okay, we'll just move along. I've been invited to many of his birthdays, and this is the first time I've been invited to say anything, which you're probably finding out why pretty quick. But his 70th birthday was at my house, and I wasn't even invited to speak. So what do you say about that? And a lot of people question his age, not because of his being old, but because he looks so darn good, doesn't he? And he's been in such good health. Give him a round of applause. I know, thankfully, we got this newspaper here that says he was born in 33. That might be true. The only thing I know for sure, because I did my research, he was born after the Sermon on the Mount. I know that for a fact. I don't know if it was a few days, a few weeks, but it was after that point in time. I go back 45 years with our friend Ray. I met him through a friend by the name of Father Dan. And in fact, my friends over here, Cindy and John, also were what Ray calls the Father Dan leave-behinds. That's how he referred to us for the first few years. Well, you're just the Father Dan leave-behinds. And I want to say something, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. We might have been introduced to you through Father Dan, but we stuck with you because of you. 45 years from me, I think a couple more for Cindy and John. And as Father Don said earlier, see, I call him Father, as Father, because he was high up in the diocese. So I had to be very careful. But he went up to do their wedding. I used to play racquetball in the early days with Ray. We would play racquetball on Saturday mornings, and we played a lot of racquetball. And then we would sit in the jacuzzi after the game, and we would talk about the Sunday's gospel. And he likes the fact that I tell stories, and so he'd be picking my brain looking for stories that might use in his homily for the Sunday gospel. So I'm partially responsible. If you like the stories, then it was me. If you didn't, those are the ones he insisted on. But that was our relationship. We had a wonderful relationship that was connected personally and in ministry. I am celebrating next year my 50th year in ministry. And so knowing Ray for 45 years, he has been part of my life and my ministry for almost the entire ministry. And I am very grateful for everything he's done. And I'm going to give you a few examples here. But I want to say that once we got to a point in our lives, age-wise, he's older, a lot, but that we couldn't play racquetball anymore, we started to play tennis. And I want you to know he was a good player in both racquetball and tennis, mainly because I never expected a priest to be so aggressive. I mean, mean is a word. The guy just absolutely was kind of, he would not want to lose, and he did everything he could to win. And finally, at one point, after we'd been playing tennis for many years, and he was going blind, I thought, this is my time to beat him. And so I said, let's get out there on the tennis court. And he said yes. And I want you to know, for the first time I won. And I'd like to say it's because I was a good player, but no, it was because he tripped over the dog is the problem. So that's the problem there. So I'm going to give you 4 words that I've come up with that I think define my relationship with Father Ray, Monsignor Ray, should be Bishop and Cardinal Ray. The first one is encouraging. Here I was, a young guy meeting him, a guy who was considering at the time the seminary, and thanks to his encouragement, I went through the discerning process at the seminary to decide whether or not that was my call. I decided that wasn't my call, but being in ministry was. And so I tried to figure out what I could do. And one of the things I came up with doing in ministry was performances of the apostles. And I do live performances, one-man plays of different apostles. Now, I've been doing these for almost 40 years. The reason that I have kept going, the reason I was first able to get going, is Father Ray Kirk. You see, when I went that direction in ministry, that was a little bit outside the norm for our church. And our church didn't know what to do with me. And they weren't allowing me. My first place to perform was, believe it or not, a Methodist church, just simply because my own church wasn't ready for what I did. But then my friend Ray Kirk says, well, let's see how it goes here. And he invited me to perform Judas Iscariot at his church. And then he says, you got a good response. How would that go as the homily? And he had me do Judas Iscariot on Palm Sunday as the homily. And I want to tell you that that invitation at that parish all those many years ago continued to where until COVID, I was doing Judas as the homily on Palm Sunday at a church in the Diocese of San Diego. So, for example, the last 9 years before COVID, it was Resurrection Church in Escondido, and they had 9 masses. And here I'm doing this presentation of Judas Iscariot. And it's because of you, my friend Ray, that continued. Because of you, I have learned that what ministry is all about is the ripple effect. It's the things that we do for each other that ripple out and impact in positive ways other people. You have played a major role in my life and in my ministry because of how encouraging you are. When I wasn't getting anywhere with a particular priest, you would call him up and say, hey, give the guy a try. I remember when I was asked to film my St. Paul, they wanted to put it in movie theaters across the country. And I decided I wanted to film it at St. Therese of Carmel in the Del Mar Heights area of Carmel Valley, right? Carmel Valley area. But I didn't know the pastor there at the time. So I called, as I always did, my default Monsignor Ray Kirk, and I said, do you know the pastor there? And he says, yeah, but you're better off calling our mutual friend, Father Mike Canaan, over at another Irishman, by the way. There's something about the foreign-born Irish, right, Father Brian? Yeah. And so I called Father Mike Canaan, and I said, who I like very much and who liked me, and I said, hey, do you think you could talk to your friend, the pastor? And sure enough, it happened. They filmed me doing St. Paul at St. Teresa Carmel, and it ended up being in movie theaters across the country. That would not have happened if it wasn't for Monsignor Ray Kirk. Once I was doing a mission for a parish in Ohio, St. Paul the Apostle Parish in New Middletown, Ohio. And the pastor is a friend of mine, and he said, we're going to lunch with a group of other priests, part of a committee, and just come along. You might have input for us. So I went along with them, and what they were talking about was the lack of priests in the Diocese of Youngstown, Ohio. And they were trying to come up with ideas. They were tasked by the bishop to come up with what they could do in their diocese. And I raised my hand and I said, you know what? I know a priest in San Diego who knows a priest in San Bernardino who was very, very active at dealing with what can be done to help parishes when there's a lack of priests. And I put them together, thanks to Monsignor Ray Kirk and Monsignor Don, and they helped the Diocese of Youngstown, Ohio, even though they had never been there, but they wouldn't have been helped if it wasn't for them. That's what ministry is. He is encouraging. During the scandal in our church, I'm doing missions and retreats in churches all over the United States. And the people who sit in the pews, you and I, are very upset with what's going on in our church. And during the question and answers of the retreats and the missions that I'm giving, they would start to voice their opinion of how angry they were at the church. And they say to me, how can you stick with it? How can you stay so positive in our church? And I said, let me tell you about my friend, Monsignor Ray Kirk. Because most of the priests are good. Most of the people are good. And I've been lucky enough to know some good ones. And this is a good one. Father Don's a good one. Father Brian's a good one. Father Brian, by the way, along with him, married me many years ago. So we got a connection. So you help Father Ray because of your encouraging me. By extension, the ripple effect, you help people all across this great nation of ours. That's what ministry is all about. And I am so blessed to know you. It's your encouragement that kept me going. The second word I'm going to give you is comfort. You were there when I lost my mother in 1981 at only 56 years of age. You were there when I went through my divorce in 2009. You were there after 25 years. You were there when I had my heart attacks. Multiple. You were there when I had my strokes. You were there when I was in my rollover car accident and broke every vertebrae in my neck and had parts of my hand amputated. You were there. You're an encourager and you're a comforter. You are there. You mentioned in your talk, sir, that he's a good friend. Yes, he is. And he's one that will always be there when you reach out to him. I'm so blessed to know him. So you're an encourager, you're a comforter, and the last thing you're a person who accepts. There was a book that came out about 20 years ago that said men are from Mars and women are from Venus. When it comes to politics, that's Ray and I. I'm from Mars, he's from Venus. We are so diametrically opposed, but we have remained friends for all these many years because he accepts. Because he has taught me, and we should all learn, this world needs to learn the concept of having different ideas, different thoughts, different opinions, different beliefs, and still get along with each other and find ways to work together and be together. That's what he is a model to me for. And he is a person that accepts me with all my shortcomings and all my faults and has been there for me in so many different ways. And lastly, and I'll end with this, you gave me one of the greatest gifts that you can give. It's a gift that I've tried to give my daughter. It's called... I'm sorry, it's my brain disease here. It has nothing to do with my feelings toward Ray. Confidence. That's the greatest gift we can give one another. I have been able to move forward in my ministry and in my life because of the confidence that you instilled in me. Simple things you would do. Sit me down and we'd have conversations. You'd ask me a question. Mark, do you think that people believe in the Eucharist anymore? Well, who am I? You're a priest. You know, you're asking me my opinion? That's a small thing, but it gave me confidence that maybe my thoughts mean something. Maybe when I have different thoughts, I can share them and somebody will care enough about them. That's how you made me feel. You gave me confidence that when I was down and out, I could get better. You gave me confidence that after my strokes and I was paralyzed, that like you, when you went blind, you kept going. That was the confidence you gave me to pull through my strokes. When I broke my neck and my hand was partially amputated, it was thinking about you and what you pushed through and watching how you did it that gave me the confidence to never give up. And so I'm back performing now. I'm back giving talks again now, and it's all because of you. I am grateful. The gospel today, and I end with this. The gospel today is Jesus asking Peter, who do they say that I am, and who do you say that I am, Peter? I'm going to turn that around. And I want all of us to think about Jesus asking us, or us wondering, who does Jesus say we are? Who does Jesus say you are? Does Jesus say you are a person who loves God? Are you a person who lives the faith? Well, I know in my life from knowing you, my good friend Ray, that Jesus says that you are a good and faithful servant. And for me, that's the best that could ever happen. Amen? So I say to you, happy birthday, many more. Feliz cumpleaños, mucho más. Thank you all. I have a 37-point introduction to Father Ray. A lot of people know that he walks, and he goes for a lot of walks. And he was walking the other day when he called and he told me. And as he was walking with his dog, he heard a voice, and it said, "Pick me up, pick me up." And he's looking around, and he doesn't see anybody, and he looks down, and there's a frog. And the frog is shouting, "Pick me up, pick me up." And so Ray rips down and picks up the frog, and the frog says to him, "If you kiss me, I turn into a beautiful woman." And Ray looked at the frog and thought about it, put the frog in his pocket, and the frog said, "Wait a minute, I turn into a beautiful woman." He said, "At my age, I'm better off with a talking frog." Anybody by saying Ray, well, forget about it. I'm going to do it because I've been calling him Ray for 45 years. It does not mean that I do not respect the title. I do. I admire him as a priest. I respect him as a priest. I admire him as a Monsignor. And I also know that if it wasn't for his association with me, he certainly would have been Monsignor by now, a bishop, or perhaps a cardinal. And if they had accepted the $200 I gave him in Rome, he'd have been the Holy Father Ray. But because I feel responsible for holding back his career, I feel it's okay to refer to him as Ray. Is that okay? Yep. Okay. All right. I mean no disrespect, and he knows it.